Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. It's our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST. Every day of the week, we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and any other market. Literally any other one where we think we might be able to make some or a lot of money on the internet. I'm your host, Btc. I'm joined by my legendary co-host. It's a full house today. We got legendary, we've got Bread, we've got Sammy. We're going to get into everything to do with the market in just a little bit, but just a reminder, friends, that no matter what we say, no matter how excited we are that we're in a full house, we might have some brimming ideas today. We might have some brilliant ideas. We still, even though they'll sound great, we don't know what we're talking about necessarily. So this is not financial advice. Please do exercise caution and use your own judgment. With that out of the way, legendary, it is Wednesday. It is the 17th of July. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, I'm stoked. I love the Wednesday. I love the full house. I'm not only excited for, the brilliant ideas that you mentioned, I honestly also like the crackpot ideas that we sometimes discuss on the show. As you perfectly labeled them, they can be very, very fun.
We should have a segment for crackpot ideas. I don't know that we've had one very recently, though.
Do you think we can get a sponsor for crackpot ideas?
Yeah. There'd be plenty of applicable sponsors in the crypto industry to match our crackpot ideas with their crackpot products or coins. Yeah, I don't remember one recently though. Do you?
I mean, I think my AI toothbrush qualifies as one, to be quite frank.
That's a crackpot purchase, to be honest.
Yeah, but it started as a crackpot idea.
I guess so, from someone. Clearly, this is a good place to showcase your crackpot ideas because Legendary is probably going to fund you for it. And
unless it's a stake at Co-op in London that comes in a GPS tracked hard case, which is wild.
Yeah, that was pretty insane to see. Things are not great over here, admittedly. Bread, how are you doing, my friend? How are you on? Where are you on the scale of for crackpot ideas? Are you amenable to them?
I was just scrambling in my brain to come up with an AI version of something ridiculous, so Legendary would buy into it, but I couldn't do it in the 10 seconds between you mentioning it and me getting called on. So I'm gonna say AI lamp, which is not actually that crazy because I think that could be useful. Yeah, I subscribe to some of the stuff. I'm not a first iteration buyer of basically any new tech though, so you could have that Legendary. I had my 3D TV. I did not use my 3D TV. I will not be doing the same mistake with AI.
The 3D TV.
Yeah, had the glasses and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Used it once.
That's so funny. Sammy, how you doing? Any ideas for Legendary to buy any of your crackpot ideas?
I think an AI water bottle, actually. I'm just looking at it now. I'm like, I don't drink enough of this stuff. So just having something on there that gives you like an electric shock or something like that. So maybe when you put your chip in your head, it gives you that electric shock being like, drink more water.
Honestly, just chirp up. Say like, you're going to die, dumbass. Drink this. You don't have enough of this. That's my problem.
So I used to have a smart water bottle that had an OLED screen on it that would basically tell you the temperature of the water inside or the liquid inside, and the most unnecessary thing on it, it would also tell you how full or empty the bottle is. That was so ridiculous to read that on the screen.
But that doesn't incentivize you to drink it, right? Like you need some sort of like being like, okay, you're going to die if you don't drink this. This is your life expectancy unless you drink this within the next, I don't know. Yeah. Just like
have you guys, I feel like there's a thing that's happening at the moment, which is AI is replacing the word smart for stuff. It's like,
I did it just went through my head. I was like, yeah,
it's going to be an AI TV. You mentioned AI water bottle, Sam.
Smart bottle. There's got to be one out there, right?
Smart bottle.
Syncs to my Garmin, tells me how many whatever's I'm drinking. Yeah.
Exactly. There's no real difference, but it just made me think in the UK, we have smart roads. I don't know if do you guys have smart roads?
Well, I'm from the UK as well, so I guess we do. I've never heard of them though.
We don't have roads in America, actually. Our infrastructure is so bad, we've reverted to dirt.
Did you know, actually, no, fun fact, did you know that the cat's eyes in the middle of the road, that made the guy that stumbled across that idea, he basically was cycling back drunk from a pub, so British guy, and saw some cat's eyes that reflected, and that's where it came from. He's now a millionaire. So is that
Genius.
technically a smart road?
That was the first iteration of AI. He actually went on to invent AI. I think that's not so well known. He created it.
I'm calling bullshit on that.
Today I learned. Thanks, Bcheck.
There we go. That's the proper analysis that you've all tuned in for today. But as usual, let's get into the market stuff. As always, from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, let's get into the crypto price action, the headlines, and everything else to do with the crypto and NFT market. Let's start with some price action first. I'll just share the screen for people who are watching in. We're live on X on video. We're live on YouTube on video too. So let's get into it. Bitcoin is up 2.5%. We absolutely love to see it. It actually broke above 65K, now just beneath at 64.9. ETH is up a couple of percent too, almost again at 3.5K. Solana up 3.5% to $162. In terms of the headlines, we have number one, Bitcoin ETF inflows. I think this very fortunately was corrected by a member of the audience. The ETF inflows was actually higher than this. This was just the BlackRock ETF inflows, which hit $260 million yesterday as exchanges received $3.1 billion funds from Mt. Gox trustees to distribute. So two things happening. A, those funds from the Mt. Gox trustees are getting ready to be distributed. They're supposed to get distributed in the next 7 to 14 days. Separately, the inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs are just going insane, like absolutely huge. BlackRock and Fidelity, another point to note, BlackRock and Fidelity now own a combined 495,683 Bitcoin worth $32 billion. OGD Farmer said, at this pace, ETFs would mop up the Gox coins in a week at this pace, if this was to continue and if those Mt. Gox holders were to want to liquidate. A final, I think that's sufficient on that. Number two, Sam Altman's Worldcoin surges 35% as the unlock schedule for 80% of the tokens held by the team was extended from 3 to 5 years. We've been seeing this a lot recently, where people are trying to calm investors and keep holding the token by fixing some of the tokenomics after the tokens have come to market. Seems to be a positive response so far. We'll get into some of those details a bit. If you don't know, Worldcoin is the human verification crypto project co-founded by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. He announced that the early contributors to his efforts will begin to see their WLD tokens unlock starting next week. But they've obviously made this change where the unlock schedule for 80% of the world tokens held by certain team members and investors will be extended from 3 to 5 years. So we'll get into some of those details in a bit. Finally, SkyTrade announces pre-seed round to build the first air rights marketplace on chain. This is really, really fascinating to me. I do believe this feeds into a bigger narrative around RWAs and kind of just bringing traditional rights on chain, traditionally hard to access markets. So want to dive into the details there, maybe draw some parallels with mineral rights that are also coming on chain and other things like that. Very, very interesting stuff. A few notable sales from around the market. Azuki Spirit selling for 70 ETH. That was a big one that took place yesterday. Other side, Coda selling for 23 ETH. And another Azuki selling for 14 ETH. It was a golden skateboard one. So legendary. That is the price action. Those are the headlines. Before we get into a bigger discussion on the headlines today, is there anything that is catching your attention?
Absolutely. Let's take a look at Mintify, our NFT trading and marketplace partner. Generally speaking, it's a pretty red day. It's nothing is down significantly, but everything is kind of down. Azuki, Captains, all the things we typically talk about down 1 to 3%. However, there's another sale that's actually standing out to me, and it's the real MVP, the top asset in the meme land ecosystem. One real MVP sold yesterday for 44 ETH.
Wow.
It was obviously lower than the last sale. It appears to be down 8%, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is just to see this kind of sustained like price action in the meme land ecosystem. We saw a bunch of actually MVPs sell last week with the positive price action on the Captains, and I don't know. I still quite a big fan of their ecosystem, especially of what they're doing with Stakeland. So found it quite cool to highlight the MVP sale.
Yeah, that's nice. I missed that one in terms of notable sales, so thank you for bringing that one up. Memeland's still going pretty damn strong. I met Char again in Brussels, where I was last week. Absolute legend, like real savvy operator on the Memeland team. Great to meet him again and catch up. Sammy, what about you from your perspective? You've been looking at the markets last few days. Anything catching your attention before we get into the bigger headlines?
So actually, if you go to the Mintify heat map now extends to base, which I found quite interesting because I think there's a lack of visibility as to what was going on there from the NFT side previously. So it's pretty useful. So there's, I think it was Mutatios that I had were up 20% on the day, which was quite interesting. And if those recall, I don't even know when that minted. Was it several months ago? It might have been back in the last year, early this
Probably
year.
like last week. We just don't remember.
Time flies. Yeah, I think so that's up a little bit. I think there was stuff like VCon tickets. Like we don't really necessarily see those types of NFTs on these platforms for ETH and Blast. So that to me was quite interesting. And obviously you got the VCon conference probably coming up relatively soon. So just watching the price action of that on the secondary market just piqued my interest because it's a little bit different to the PFP trading stuff. And
that's interesting.
The Oviators as well, which to me, like, so Oviators, I think when we were in Miami, those minted. So we went and had a look at the exhibition. I bought 2 of those. I've actually got them here. So
no way.
You can redeem them and you've got like a physical case with.
Put them on.
I
mean, I can't believe you've got them and they're not on your face right now.
I know. Well, I don't know if they suit me.
Hang on, let me do the zoom in. Wait. Here we go.
So you can see it's got like a slight little point there.
Okay.
Nice. Look at that.
So that's like in the shape of the Opepen thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that to me,
it's cool now until you get a sunburn on your eyebrow that has a little wick up there, and you're gonna look weird.
Love a good tan. So yeah, I don't know, that just struck me as something that's interesting because I think with base NFTs, like there's more to it than the simple PFPs, and those kind of things are trending, which just was a little bit interesting. I thought it'd be worth pointing out.
Gaias are the one that's been in my DMs forever. Not them directly, but I have in a couple of group chats. I have some diehard Gaia holders, I guess I should say. They've been waiting for, because that's attached to Sinas and Farcaster, and like there's a whole thing about it. And I think they got as high as like 1.5 ETH or something at one point. I don't know what they're at now, but
they're at 0.5 here. I'm sharing it.
Interesting.
Yeah, they bled out for a little bit, but yeah, the art was teased a couple times. People were all excited about it, as is tradition. And then I know Sinas teased a game or something with Farcaster, but the other day. But it's been going up and down for a while. And Mochimon's the ones that's tied to the actual Mochi token, like it's a meme coin, but also a culture coin, whatever.
Wow, that's up 70% in 24 hours.
Yeah, okay. They probably did some kind of announcement.
Place it's at 0.12 ETH. Quick question here on base. Interesting. Thanks for bringing that up, Sam, and thanks for the additional thoughts on the base stuff, Bread. But like, do you think that that's where a lot of these more useful NFTs will go? Like, do you think base is emerging as the chain where if you have
useful? Hold on, what NFTs have we ever owned that are useful? Let's start there.
Maybe they're all going to exist on base because base brings the network. I was actually listening to. I was kind of being facetious there, but I listened to a talk with Jesse the other day. Jesse heads up base. And one of the core propositions that he's putting out there to people at the moment is that other chains might pay you. Like you can get incentivized and be paid to go and work with a particular chain. Base, the reason why Base don't do that is because they're saying like, no, we'll actually be able to help you find the product market fit. So look, yes, you're in some way, maybe your product isn't useful. I guess this is the argument they're trying to make on some level. Maybe your product is cool, but if you don't have the network on a particular place, you don't have.
Yeah, they're more of an incubator than a whatever Papa.
Yeah,
paying money to you. Although they do pay you too.
Networking maybe to be able to supercharge you a little bit and help you find product market fit sooner. Whereas if you go to some random chain, you don't know whether it's you don't know whether it's the people, like you don't know if you've got product market fit or not, because there's not enough activity there for you to get your decision. Is that was what I took from it. What's your thought on that, Brad?
Yeah. I mean, that could be the pitch. I would argue that it's the same thing with Blast and probably a few other things. They probably all have a similar pitch. The benefit to Base is distribution, right? Because you can get in front of the Coinbase wallet. You can,
Sure,
it's fucking associated to Coinbase. Awesome. But then it's also like they're saying we don't pay you, but they will pay you. They have, I think, like, Thank You Base God is, and there's like a little bit of like a Coinbase cabal thing going on there, like alums from Coinbase that are either like rumored to be or are behind a lot of these projects, which they're all smart people. It's just all kind of corporate and sterile, I think, is kind of the commentary. But they will pay you. Like, you can actually do Smart Wallet and get $15,000 in sponsored gas payments for users. You can do grants. I think you get up to like 5 ETH is what they are.
Much
and like
smaller than what other people might get for like a marquee project.
Right. It's not 20 million gold, but it's money. So like they do pay you too. Or at least they have the programs.
It's just so funny that you just said that money was, you said that as if money is worth is a stupid thing in comparison to 20 million gold. Like,
no, I'm saying like 5 ETH is nothing compared to 20 million gold. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I agree. Interesting stuff. Any final reflections here on either Base or anything else going on in the market, Legendary? Otherwise, I know you want to get into a bit of a segment we've prepared to focus a little bit on airdrops and how we're thinking about that type of stuff moving forward.
Yeah, one final point highlighting the YouTube comments was MK asking, going back to the MVP sale, are these huge sales bullish for NFTs, or are they just some whales that are spending their money on JPEGs? What do we think on that?
Sammy?
I think it depends on the intent, right? Because I think if the whales are looking to just offload them at some point, they're probably looking for an entry. I just don't know about the market dynamic. Is this specifically in relation to Base? Or is this
just in general? We saw, so the person who bought the Azuki Spirit also bought like a more expensive doodle. I think he bought 3 other NFTs at the same time. Clearly, like, well, obviously you don't know their perfect intentions, but definitely like entering the market in a big way and just wanting to buy stuff, it looks like. So
yeah, I think I mean, I look at it in terms of cycles, right? So if you've got at some point, I think liquidity is going to flow back into NFTs, but I do think we have to have kind of that explosive blow off top in terms of fungible tokens for then people to then spend that money on. And if you look at, I think in May 2024 was when the blow off top happened, first one for Bitcoin. And then you had like a bull run in July, August for NFTs. And then the same again in November. Then you had the bull run in January, February for NFTs. So I think like we have to have that first before that money flows back in. And I think these big whale buyers probably have that spare liquidity. They don't mind locking up for a little bit longer. So they're kind of front running that cycle and they might get some bargains. But to me, I think it just depends on whether you personally have opportunity cost or like a better option outside of locking up for that period of time. So, and I don't know how long it's going to take for that liquidity to come back in. I think it will at some point, but it's just hard to tell.
Yeah, personally, I think it is pretty bullish actually. Like, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get the type of blow-offs that people are dreaming of in the same way that happened in 2021. But to the extent that this is a brand new asset class and people are not brand new, but it's a relatively new asset class and people are willing to properly collect again and go way above the floor and not treat NFTs as fungible and treat them literally as non-fungible and say, no, this one is more unique and more special. Therefore, I'm willing to pay 50 more ETH for this one rather than that one. Like, yeah, of course, I think that's good that there's more people who are willing to do that. So that's my perspective on that. Just shout out to Generative 22 on the YouTube comments, kind of foreshadowing where we're going to go with the conversation next. Said Sanctum's cloud airdrop was very divisive today. Like many airdrops, I suppose they rewarded contributors and content creators far more than most projects. That leads us very nicely into our segment for today. Legendary is going to lead on some airdrop thoughts, some airdrop strategies and tactics before we then take think about Sanctum and just where we are in the airdrop kind of market. So Legendary, here we go.
Absolutely, let's do it. What I actually want to do is to have a look at Pendle Finance. I feel like on the show we've spoken about Pendle Finance, about points and yield farming on that protocol for quite a while. but we never had like a comprehensive walkthrough on how that protocol actually works. And this segment is brought to you by Pump Markets, which is the ultimate protocol for trading your airdrop points and pre-GE tokens. Going to Pendlefy, there's two types of tokens there. One is the principal token, the other one is the yield token. So what the principal token does, and it's actually a bit complex. I'm still gonna try to keep this explainer like relatively short to then move into an example that will make it a bit more clear. The principal token allows you to, well, redeem the underlying principal asset after its maturity date. So basically it has a lower entry cost than the original asset, and its value grows over time, and it becomes redeemable one-to-one at its maturity date. If you are more familiar with finance terms, that's very, very similar to a zero coupon bond. On the other hand, you have the yield token that lets you receive the yield of the underlying asset until its maturity date. And the idea kind of is that the yield that you receive is worth more than what you paid for the yield token. Again, I know this is super complex, so let's have a look at an example on how that actually works, which I think will make it a bit more clear. Say you want to participate in this airdrop in this points market, and you want to farm Carrack being that restaking layer that currently has about 1 billion in TVL locked, and you want to farm points there for a potential token airdrop. Let's assume it's you have a stable stack that, or part of a stable stack that you want to put to use. Say you have USDE, the stablecoin in Ethena's ecosystem, which Pchek likes quite a lot, and you want to use that to farm points on Carrack. There's three ways on how you can go about that on Pendle. One is just to go for the PT, just to go for the principal token, which means you're not going to yield any, you're not going to earn any yield, you're not going to earn any Carrack points, but you will just have a fixed APY on your stablecoin or USDE. That's currently about 20%. The other two options are to just go for the yield token, which basically gives you a leveraged points exposure at the cost of buying this yield token. And that multiplier in Carrack's example is currently a 50x multiplier, so a 50x leverage on the points that you're farming. However, the drawback obviously is that the yield token will have will have no value at the maturity date. And for Carrack, for example, that's 70 days away. That is in September. You can on Pendlefy exit at any time at the current market price, but still keep all of the points that you earned. And then the third option is basically somewhere in the middle. You just do a liquidity pool. You get to keep most of the points, and you also earn yield on the liquidity pool itself, which again, in this example, in the Carrack pool, that would be around 7%. So just to sum it up, you have the option to either say, I don't want any points. All I care about is the fixed yield, and have that 20% fixed yield on your stable. You have the option to say, nope, I'm max bullish on the Carrack token, on the Carrack points. I want to have that 50x leverage, and maybe then want to trade those tokens in a pre-market, on a pre-market protocol, or you want to position yourself somewhere in the middle and go for the liquidity pool that gives you both yield and points. And I think it's something that I find very interesting from the perspective that we typically talk about like staking ETH, and even if there's yield earning conversation on the timeline, it's mostly either staking ETH or just borrowing and lending. And I quite like that this basically with Pendlefy creates an arbitrage market for people who either want more yield or just want to have a leveraged exposure to farming the points and farming the airdrop markets. Once again, this segment was brought to you by Pump Markets. That protocol currently has 9 live pre-market tokens trading there, and has started on Blast, but has been expanding across different EVM chains ever since. Actually, Brett, I want to go straight to you now that you're basically back, because you were the first one to bring Pendlefy to my attention, and you're quite a frequent and in-depth user of that, and wanted to ask you, are you still using Pendle? And if so, what are you currently focusing on?
Yeah, I love Pendle. It's actually, on top of it being a legitimately good like novel product, like they're crushing the yield category and all this stuff, and like actually separating the yield and making that a market was their innovation. It's a legitimately good dApp. It's like one of the better UXs of our space, I would say. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of funny. You got some memetics and stuff, whatever. But for myself, yeah, I frequent it just to see if any of the markets are getting kind of crazy. I know you had been teasing at it the last few weeks, and myself as well, kind of leaning into the fixed yield stuff. Like so many of the catalysts are top of funnel to me right now, right? Like it's just general market bullishness on ETH ETF approval. Bitcoin's getting inflows that are fucking absurd right now. So like, I think price appreciation is going to go to the major assets like that, and I would like to just continue to stack that. And I'm fine giving up the 97th airdrop that's coming. So trying to get back to fundamentals, I guess, in that regard. So I look to see if any market's getting crazy there, like above, I don't know, 40, 50% fixed yield coming back to the main token. But until then, I just kind of LP.
Important question for me, maybe trying to give some color to the audience. Like this is clearly one of the more complicated things that you can do on chain. Obviously, you've got this opportunity to maximize the fixed yield versus an additional opportunity to maximize the other thing, which is the airdrop on the airdrop side. Explain, Brad, because I remember we were talking a little bit about like how at one point in time you felt more confident maximizing the airdrop side, and now you kind of have shifted to the other side. What are you seeing in the market that's made you make that adjustment? Then we'd love to hear Legendary's thoughts on that as well.
I think the move's always just kind of do with the opposite of what everyone, like what consensus is, right? Like that's where you make money. So like we went into that because no one really talked about Pendle. I didn't see a lot of it on my timeline. It obviously was being used. And I was going heavily after YTs, which was the yield side. And that was early airdrops, right? That's before EtherFi 1. That's before Swell, which still isn't here. It was before any of the LRTs were dropping. So it just seemed like a good passive way to do stuff and to bank on something that I thought had a pretty good chance of being successful. And then started getting crowded, right? Like everyone was doing it. Airdrops started to be more and more disappointing. And I thought it felt late stage, and the rotation would be like, well, fuck, like there's not much juice left to squeeze. So I was like, okay, well, while people are still kind of coming into the tail end of coming after this, like chasing yield stuff, I was like, I would like to go back to, just main asset and fund these people doing the crazy stuff. So yeah, just trying to identify consensus and move in the opposite direction. That was actually, I did a tweet yesterday. I think that we're starting to get to that point on meme coins, to be honest, after listening to TG Space, where everyone consensus is nothing has value and like whatever, all this stupid shit. And I think it's starting to become such a known thing and everyone's full nihilism that pendulum's starting to swing too heavy.
Interesting. I kind of, I definitely take that point. Legendary, I want to throw to you straight away on this tweet, and we're going to pivot into the Sanctum conversation in just a little bit as well. But Chris Berniski, quite a prominent investor in the space, fairly well respected, I think, said this. He said, now that CT has convinced itself that all high FDV and low circulation coins are uniformly bad, it's getting near the time for normies to flood in that don't care and chase the shiny new thing anyway. In some cases outperforming for a period that those that know better. And I think that's speaking to what Brad is saying, where it's like everyone here, right now has kind of come to this conclusion, but it's almost like the pendulum has swung too far. Legendary, do you see any truth in that? What's your perspective here?
Yeah, very much agree with Brad. If everyone is thinking that the only thing that is makes sense to trade as meme coins because there's no utility, it's just a meme coin, etc., etc. That's the point when we'll find other assets more interesting. And I mean, Moon Overlord on that post had the first comment saying that nope, all the new money is going to come in and just chase meme coins. Again, that might be true for someone who comes in with a small stack, or for like a private individual who comes in even with a bigger stack. But if we talk about potentially TradFi money coming in, or just investors who are not in a position where they need to chase a 100x and who just don't want to trade meme coins, they will have a look at other things. And that's typically where more money is at. You will never have a PE firm that comes in and says, yo, I'm in crypto to do a 1000x on meme coins with a 200 mil stack. That's just not the reality of things. While for the smaller traders, or not necessarily smaller traders, you still can have a wealthy individual who comes in and says, I want to trade memes with 1M or a couple mil. It's still, I do think that the majority of capital or new capital potentially comes in, not if you look at the amount of people, but if you look at the amount of capital, it's not going to be there to buy memes and pump them all the time.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair perspective. Just to go back to the kind of these low float, high FTV things, they really felt like they just bottomed out, and sentiment was absolutely rock bottom on them not too long ago. Things like Celestia, I think went as low as $5 again from maybe 20 something as a high, and Dimension as well, I think went as low as $1 when that came out the gate. That was $9. So it feels like, you know, if you wanted to dump it, and, you know, remember also people had got stuck staking these, myself included, and people have like been waiting and waiting for these 21 days for them to unstake, and then they sell them into the market. And I feel like now, if you wanted to get rid of them because you saw the price going down, you're probably out of it. And I'm essentially explaining the inverse of what I've actually done, because I was one of those people. I got stuck staking. I've now gone out. I've sold the thing that I thought was, you know, no point holding anymore. So frankly, if all the people like me following that line of thinking are out, maybe it's okay now. Who knows? Interesting to kind of explore that line of thinking. Maybe one final point on the airdrop stuff, then definitely want to go to Sam. Maybe you can intro this Worldcoin stuff for us. Sanctum, just to bring to your attention, was like a restaking protocol on Solana that had its airdrop. It hasn't had its airdrop. It's had its like checker go live, and predictably, as it always happens, or as seemingly always happens at the moment, there are people very much up in arms about the amount that they were given. Just a quick note on a tweet from, I believe, one of the founders. Let me just check who this is so I know. Building Sanctum. Yes, this is one of the founders. A really long essay. It pains me deep to the bone to disappoint any real user who supported our protocol. I feel your pain viscerally. I want to say a big thank you to all of you who've been quietly bullish with your support. Basically, I think people are slightly disappointed again. Maybe let's go to you, Sam, first before we go into the Worldcoin stuff. Like, do you see the sentiment? Like, this seems to happen every time at the moment, right? EtherFi had its second round of allocations not so long ago, and people were like a little bit disappointed, if not a lot disappointed. Sanctum has come out. This was meant to be a big restaking protocol on Solana. People seem to be disappointed. Can you see anything turning this around at the moment? Is this just the volume of protocols coming to market are too many? What's your outlook here?
Well, I think it just comes down to if people see people making money in a specific area, you have the whole flock just go there. So I think it comes down to think about cycles. Like if you discover something that no one else is talking about, you're probably going to do relatively well on it. But the moment that that's announced, people will flock over there, and then that becomes less profitable. It's more diluted. So I think the way that I would approach stuff is trying to look for those undiscovered gems that aren't necessarily being talked about. And that's pretty hard to do because you have to do your own research, which is shocking in the space. So I do think that is in essence what's kind of happening, and you just need to look for, and Bread's obviously touched on like funding rates, all that kind of stuff. Like if everyone's doing that, then why don't you provide the funding or the stable coins for them to go and make those 100x gains on meme coins? Because you're going to make a lot of money because interest rates are going to be high. People are willing to pay more for that capital. So I think that there is always opportunities in the space. It's just trying to work out, okay, well, what are the majority doing? Let me do something different.
I like that perspective. I read someone say something like, I can't remember exactly what was said, so I'll just say what I think. It feels like it's harder to find places it feels like it's harder to find protocols in which to kind of allocate your capital in size at the moment. And therefore, it doesn't mean people aren't looking for yield. It's just like, well, let's just find the best place to earn some yield in the meantime, whether that's staking your ETH or restaking your ETH, hoping for the next airdrop, whether that's just purely lending dollars. As you said, like, look, if you guys want to go out and chase the next thing, maybe I'll just fund you in order for you to go and do that stuff, if you want to be slightly more risk off than actually going out and buying the tokens yourself. So that could be one of the things to think about. Did you want to come in, Legendary?
Yeah, real quick on that. Because I had the post on Polymarket after Vance, also on basically the disparity between buying Popcat or having a bet on Polymarket that Popcat goes to 1 billion as the first cat meme token, and basically having more upside if you just look at the 1 billion threshold if you do the bet on Polymarket. And a lot of the commentary that I received on that was pushback. Yeah, but this is just a binary bet. You either win or lose it. You don't have the unlimited upside. It could go could go way higher. There's apparently Binance rumors. I think Confusion mentioned it could go way higher than that. And the thing kind of is that this is like the mindset of, but I want the maximum upside. I want, as high as possible. And fewer people are in the mindset right now to say, I'm fine with a capped upside and I'm fine to take a 30% gain, a 20% gain on that even, or have an arbitrage strategy. If the disparity is so high, you could short one and just do the bet on the other hand and just take away a free, I don't know, 5 to 10% on that trade as well. And you could actually do that with size, because I think the bet on poly market is 3M. But it's more complex, and the market currently doesn't want that. The market currently wants, nope, I want to buy a meme coin. I don't need to do research for that in terms of the same amount of research as, I don't know, using a staking protocol or any kind of DeFi yield. And you want that like promise of potential unlimited upside. And then those quick opportunities become very, very uninteresting. And this is where I think, because we're leaning so heavily on that meme side, that the pendulum, as Brett said it perfectly, will have to swing back soon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think those are all very fair points. I think I had some more to say on that, but I have forgotten. So look, we've discussed that in great detail. We will always keep coming back to like this airdrop discussion. We're always thinking about ways to maximize the yield, or think about ways we can allocate our capital efficiently. So we'll come back to this type of stuff in future as we go forward. But Sam, I think we want to get into the Worldcoin story just to set you up. Worldcoin token has jumped over 20% with unlock for early contributors starting next week. Some key details is that the team members of the Tool for Humanity is set to kick off on July the 24th. This is an article from the block. The project also announced that their unlock schedule for 80% of the tokens held by Tools for Humanity team members has been extended from 3 years to 5 years. Remember, this is not co-created by, but co-funded, co-started by Sam Altman from OpenAI. The Worldcoin token, I'm just going to share the price action, kind of got a lot of heat back in the day. Maybe still has a bit of heat. I think they came to market with something outrageous, like 1% of the circulating supply out in the market. But now they're kind of saying, look, don't worry, we're not going to dump on you just yet, or at least not all of us are going to dump on you just yet. Sam, do you want to give us some color to this story? What are your thoughts, and what are you thinking?
Yeah, so if you just go to probably the all-time chart, it gives a better reflection on the price action, because you'll see this huge spike. When's that? March time. So just to paint the picture, so you're right, I think it's a 1.2% circulating supply back on December 16th when it launched. That had a market maker contract, which effectively enabled them, or like kind of incentivized them to maintain a $2 price, or at least as close as possible. And you can kind of see that happen. But I think in March time, that market making contract wasn't renewed. And I think there was a portion of the tokens taken off the market. So actually it got squeezed even further and drove it up to $10 or even beyond $10, I think, at one point. Now, I think that there's controversy. So for those that would have seen it, I think Zach XBT quote tweeted someone who wrote an article on the inside of what they think is happening. Now, I haven't verified it, so I don't know whether it's true or not. But based on what they were saying was
that's this article, right? The Worldcoin cash grab part 2.
Yeah, so it's quite suggestive as to the stance they're taking. It's quite against what they're doing. So Worldcoin's effectively said, or the CEOs effectively said, they had no control over the price. What the market will decide what happens. But if you go to your point around high FTV, low floats, like this is like to the far extreme of a low float. Like I think there's 2.7% of the supply circulating, which is incredibly low. Like it's quite easy to manipulate that kind of price. I believe the price has been kind of going down only for since then to, I think, back to around about $2. It's recently had that pump again, just on the announcement of the team pushing back their unlocks. But yeah, it's to me, it's a bit hard to understand like what's going on. There's a bunch of facts that are being told by the Worldcoin team. But then on the other hand, just the simple tokenomics suggests that it can be construed as quite predatory. And I think with unlocks for insiders happening in 7 days' time, So the team has had that extended, but there are other insiders that will receive that benefit as well. Is the benefit of that high price going to those insiders, or is it going to the UBI, the universal basic income? So the recipients of what the whole Worldcoin initiative is supposed to be doing. And I think that's what the argument is. Just the timing of it, it could be construed as questionable, and who's actually going to be benefiting from that. And I think if that price kind of maintains or goes higher, I think it's at 30 billion FTV at the moment, then those insiders are going to benefit relatively well out of it.
Yeah, thanks so much for that additional context and sharing that article. That's interesting. I think realistically, we need to dive into that a bit more to get completely on top of the details. But as you say, it's a very, very low float, and one that you could kind of, as you said, it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on. Need to get on top of the details. We haven't read that article in full, but that clearly has been drafted in a way which is very kind of accusing of the team, kind of suggesting that it is, I guess, not necessarily malicious activity, but like this is kind of exploitative pricing or whatever, something in that kind of bucket of activity. The one thing that I just wanted to clarify, which I don't actually know the answer to this, but it felt unclarified for me in the article, is when it says that the project announced that the unlock schedule for 80% of the tokens held by the Tools for Humanity team members has been extended from 3 years to 5 years. So unless I see the actual document that says when certain things are going to come out, that doesn't sound like they're not going to start vesting anytime soon. It just sounds like maybe the period is longer, which means the amount that they receive over that period or will be kind of smaller.
And I think something else that I want more clarity on is, okay, well, what portion of the total goes to other insiders? Like we've talked about these specific insiders, and that's like a positive news from their stand. It's like, okay, well, we're going to align our incentives longer term to receive less upfront. But I do think that there's probably more insiders that are going to benefit as a result. So I think that's just something I need to spend more time personally looking into before forming an opinion. But there's just a lot of information there that needs to be kick the tires on it.
So this seems to be the more clarifying paragraph. So WLD tokens allocated to the investors and team members of Tools for Humanity. So it's just the tokens allocated to them. Early contributors to the Worldcoin project are scheduled to begin unlocking daily in a linear fashion. This week, TFH informed the Worldcoin Foundation that in a move aligned with the long-term nature of Worldcoin's mission, the unlock schedule for 80% of the WLD held by that team members and investors is being extended. So 20% of the tokens will not be extended. They'll just get them as usual. And then the 80% is being extended from 3 to 5 years. This is not saying that we don't want them yet. Don't worry about it. We'll delay. That's saying it's just going to be extended. So, I mean, Legendary, correct me if I'm wrong. This is my reading of it. We don't know the precise details, but from what I'm reading there, that's just saying that the vesting period is moving from 3 to 5 years. No?
Yeah, exactly. Which means that on a daily basis, less tokens will be unlocking because you have that, what is it, 60-ish% increase.
Sure. So less tokens are unlocking, but it definitely does not mean that no tokens are unlocking. It feels like the market's responded in a way that no tokens are unlocking. I don't know if that's the market being stupid or that's us not realizing the significance of this. Brett, do you have any final take on this before we move on? Definitely want to get into this conversation on air rights in a moment, but any final reflections on Worldcoin?
No, honestly, I was going to read into it a little bit more tonight, and it's kind of always been on the background as something that's been kind of iffy to get involved in. I know it's been covered ad nauseum in a lot of podcasts and stuff, so I've never got involved in it specifically for that reason, and this doesn't really change my opinion on it. I wasn't going to get involved in it because it was so atypical that it wasn't as predictable. So, yeah.
Interesting point. Just before we move on, you mentioned it's kind of mentioned in other podcasts and maybe been talked about a lot. I was watching the Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz political episode they did like yesterday or the day before. I was watching it this morning. They've kind of came out and were talking about why they are moving Republican after maybe being on the left for longer. And they actually spoke about Worldcoin. They was talking about how all of their portfolio companies, or not all of them, but many of them have been attacked under the previous administration. And one of the ones was Worldcoin. And how they mentioned how, like, in all of these other countries, it's seen as this really interesting thing. It's been endorsed by the government of Malaysia, and other places are trying to embrace it, whereas it's just like not available in the US at all, from the way that they expressed it. So,
as
thought
is
that was
tradition, right? Like, you know, it's it's us in like Iran and North Korea that can't do normal crypto shit. So I know, like, it's the same thing with Polymarket. It's hilarious that Polymarket is a company having exceedingly high success this round, operates out of America, can't operate in America, right? Crazy.
On
Yeah.
that note, a quick story from the YouTube comments. We had just Stefano sharing, I live in Spain, and they were giving away free world to people who downloaded
Ooh.
their app and used it every now and then. My 17-year-old brother got about $500 for free.
That's not the whole
Spain,
story,
greatest country in
though.
the world. Shout
That's
out
not the
Spain.
full story, Justifano. I heard you have to have given them your iris in order to get that. Maybe you download the app, but you got to look into their orb and give them your iris information.
I believe there are people that offer their iris on your behalf as well. So there is like a secondary market for that, which is pretty crazy.
We'll split it. 250 each. Your iris for $250. Justifano, if you could confirm that in the comments, we'd like to know if that is definitely what happened. That is what I had heard at one point. Look, let's get into, we've got another really interesting headline to talk about today. The Bitcoin stuff, I think we can leave. Like, yes, we're bullish. We kind of spoke about how bullish everything was getting yesterday. So that is still happening. The inflows are happening in a big way. But let's hit the Web3 roundup first to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the space before we hit this very interesting final headline. So as always, from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, this is the Web3 roundup. I'm going to share it on screen for people who are watching in on YouTube and X, which is actually turning out to be a lot of people in general. Right. Number one, prominent writer and statistician Nate Silver joins Polymarket. That's pretty important. We've been speaking about Polymarket a lot. Number two, Pudgy Penguins feature Orange Cap Games TCG game in latest Building in Public episode. That's pretty cool. I'm an investor in OCAP Games, and very cool to see that product come to market and hear Lucas speak about how he thinks Pudgy Penguins will invade the TCG realm, potentially with this game. So that's pretty fun to see. Next, Blast announces bridge time reduced from 14 days to 7 days. I'm sure people will be happy about that, although still slower than other L2s ultimately. Edison by Board Elon raises an angel round of $2.2 million to accelerate development of metaverse game. That's by Board Elon Musk. So interesting to see how that goes. Next, big news out of Doodles. They released their official trailer for Dullsville and the Doodleverse. That looks pretty cool. 60 of Grant Young's top 300 Deca holders selected for Iconic Mint. Digital art is still going strong, particularly for the strongest artists. Grant Young is exceptionally popular. So we'll see how that goes. And finally, On Cyber 3D World Builder releases V2 with no code options to create and earn. Always interested what's going on On Cyber to see whether that will be the place where people kind of live out in the metaverse a little bit more. Very cool, like 3D world that you can build stuff. And it seems like now you can drag and drop manifold mints into there, so you can embed a mint based on custom logic, build a 3D game around meme coins, things like that. Very interested to see how that stuff progresses. That's the Web3 roundup. We've got 7-8 minutes to hit the final headline, which I think is very interesting. The final headline is to do with SkyTrade. So SkyTrade is a company that's just raised a pre-seed round. And what they do is their mission is to open the skies. We're building the world's first air rights marketplace, allowing property owners, real estate companies, and traders to monetize and fluidly buy and sell air rights on chain. We're also unlocking the skies for drones by allowing customers to rent their private air rights. I think this is a fascinating thing. I'm going to do some more thoughts on this in a minute, but I just wanted to tie it to this other site which we reported on, I think it was last week or the week before, called Elements, which is bringing energy, tokenized commodities onto the blockchain also. Again, I'm showing this on screen for the people who are watching in. They say there's untapped potential in oil and gas. they say real world assets by their very nature are hard to access. With Elements, it's now easier than ever for investors. These types of rights, I would basically have no idea how to get exposure to if I thought they were interesting in the traditional world, being someone that is old enough to have some money around in order to want to invest, but not quite old enough or sophisticated enough to, I don't know, go through the corporate channels in order to get exposure to this stuff. So I guess both of these companies' thesis is something like we want to democratize the access to these particular types of rights, whether that's minerals, whether that's air, whether that's any of these types of real world kind of these real world yields. So Legendary, what's your thought on this? Maybe in particular for the air stuff, or just the movement in general to have more of this stuff on chain.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to paint a bit more color on that, because I think the context is helpful. Where is this? So basically, the idea is you are able to claim the airspace above your own property, because 500 feet above your own property, it's actually not the government's airspace, it's your own airspace. And the way that it works is, if, say, I want to fly my drone at 300 feet over your property V-check, you could charge me, I think, in 30-minute increments and starting at $2. So, and basically generate passive income from your airspace if you have something cool that a drone could see from there. So I don't know, imagine you have a cool view over your property, someone flies with a drone, wants to take a shot, and you monetize on that. The question is, how does this work in practice though? Will you have to monitor your own airspace and basically sue people who fly between that, I don't know, 100 to 500 feet area, not paying for that? It kind of reminds me of the case of, there's a couple of court cases going on in Vienna with people who own private property and kind of make it look like a parking lot, except it's not a parking lot. Then they have like a small mini sign that says this is private property. They have a video camera on there. They're working with lawyers, and whenever someone parks their car there, they just sue them and fine them for like a couple $100. So I don't think that like the mindset is there yet to think about, if I'm flying my drone over someone's airspace, that I actually would have to pay for that if they commercialize those rights, and I would never have the idea to look that up. So generally, I think it's a cool idea, but in practice, I don't really see this working as a like passive income right now.
Okay, I think that might be fair. A couple of points and additional pieces of information before we hear some more thoughts. One, shout out to Generative22 in the comments. Airspace airdrop hits hard though. Just the air, the word air is going to add at least $50 million to FTV in their opinion. Next point, to your point about like how would this actually work practically, one of the investors shared this example of someone who bought a very expensive airspace. Said Ken Griffin, who's the CEO of Citadel, recently paid $164 million for the airspace above St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan. Today, the air rights market is private, opaque, and illiquid. That will change. So look, maybe there's like very niche specific examples where the airspace is like incredibly valuable, in the same way that there's certain property areas where it's like incredibly valuable, and then the rest of it, it's like a power law, like 80% of the value will go to 20% of the airspace. Maybe the rest of it won't. I have absolutely no idea at the moment. Need to think on it way more. Just to give people more information, you're kind of like wondering how it might work. This comes from their website. Air rights are crucial for urban development, can be actively traded, transferred, and leveraged through SkyTrade, facilitating vertical construction, preserving unobstructed views, and supporting low-altitude drone operations. Investors can buy, sell, or rent air rights, enhancing investment portfolios and ensuring unimpeded drone corridors. Sammy, do you want to ensure an unimpeded drone corridor above your house? What's your thoughts on this?
I just don't think it will work from a retail standpoint, but I think from a commercial standpoint, it makes sense. I think that, so as soon as I saw you put this in the snapshot, I did look into it. So I was like, I'm pretty sure we don't own the air rights like exponentially. And I think Legendary clarified with the 500 feet point. But I think every jurisdiction is going to be different as well. Like there's not going to be one legal framework that fits. So I think that if you have like a landmark that people want to go and see, or if there's like a movie happening that could potentially, like from your particular viewpoint above your house, then maybe you might be able to get some commercial rights, because those kind of companies are probably going to pay, because they're the reputational risk, but B, also if they do get sued, then I don't know, they probably take a business standpoint as opposed to just ignoring it. But I think from a retail perspective, if you have some rando putting his drone above your house, I just don't know how you're going to enforce that.
Do you know what? I had this really funny, when I was a lawyer, there was this situation once where someone wanted to sue this guy. I don't know if we have time for this story, to be honest. Someone wanted to. We actually don't have time for the story.
No, go on. You can't do that and then not say. Just say it, and then we'll finish.
So this guy was like he was one of these adventurists. He was like, he would go around with a drone and like explore these like what's the word?
Uninhabited areas. Yeah.
Like uninhabited, like buildings, like old buildings that have been abandoned.
Lost
and
places.
He'd go, huh?
Lost places.
Yeah, kind of lost places, but also just abandoned buildings, old, interesting stuff, but nothing's there. And he'd go with drones, and he'd like go with drones, and he'd had this YouTube channel where he'd like put all this stuff up, and he'd like go and explore and do this and that. And like one of our clients, who was a client of the firm, but just like in a normal context, just rang the firm one day. It's just, this guy is recording over our thing. And they got into a fight because the drone was going over their house, and they had like young children in the back, and they were like, what the hell is it? It's like, you're not allowed to have your drone here. Like, this is completely unacceptable, blah, 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 blah. And we actually got into, and then, I mean, it transpired, he then also filmed the fight that they had when they came out to confront him. And then he published that on the channel as well. And so they were trying to sue him for defamation, wanted us to take the videos down off of YouTube. But the point was, and then there was like this big argument about whether, like, what was he actually filming? Is it okay for the drone to be there, so long as it wasn't filming like the private stuff? And he was arguing, well, I only captured content which was about the thing that like this abandoned building. But there was this whole argument about the airspace and like whether the drone was allowed to be there or not. And yeah, there was pretty crazy. So I was wondering, and then to share this final point from the thing, which it got me wondering, this individual homeowner, I don't know where they got this testimonial from. Drones can now deliver my medicine in minutes, which is a real help to our family. I know that's kind of thinking about drones in a different way. And this person said, I only want drones over my house on weekdays, and SkyTrade helped me to do that. Like, is there a way for you to take ownership over those things in a more concrete way and actually have like, I mean, A, how much do we think drones are going to be a part of the future? Because I think certainly people are pushing for that. And then B, if they are, like, maybe you'll be able to enforce this stuff way more. Kind of gone on a little bit of a tangent there, but maybe a final reflection from anyone on that. Like,
I do think the whole, I don't know, it gives me that image of like utopia, or like the futuristic images you see of cities where you have like flying cars and stuff like that. And I think eventually, if we're going that way, because there are car manufacturers that are doing flying cars now. It's not quite.
Just think how good drones are. Like, drones are amazing on that. You've seen all kinds of stuff in a military context, and typically it's the military that is the forefront of the tech first anyway. Like, moving into a world where that's going to be far more significant, then maybe that is something. So interesting stuff.
The world's going to be tokenized. That's it. The world is going to be tokenized.
Claim your airspace right here. We are not sponsored by these guys, but it says that you can claim your airspace. So maybe you should do that. Guys, this has been a great show. Appreciate you for joining us. Thank you so much to my co-hosts, as always, legendary Bread and Sammy. Thank you so much to our contributors up on stage as well. We've got Oxy on stage with us. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll be back again, same time, same place, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week, Monday to Friday. Take care. Have a good one. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.